I could use a good cry. You know, sometimes you're just in the mood to be emotionally ruined. This one has absolute garbage ratings on Goodreads. Okay, the last one is really going to set in stone that I am a Enneagram type 7. I don't know what that means, except that I think it means I'm gonna have a good time. Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Noelle. This is Noelle 7 Pages, and the 7 is my Enneagram type. So today I'm doing a quarterly, up to this point, book haul from everything that I have acquired in 2021 so far. And originally I was gonna do this like monthly, like here's the ones I got in January, etc. But I think that would only be interesting for me. So what I ended up doing is putting them into piles according to like genre. I have a pile for graphic novels, a pile for nonfiction, all of that, which I think will probably make more sense and be a little bit more interesting. And there will be time codes in the description if you only care about like the fiction or whatever. And like at least a third of these I bought last week when I went like really book shopping for the first time in, I don't know, like actually forever. And most of the rest of these I have slowly accumulated, just a few each month, because in my bullet journal, if you guys know, I've been wrapping up in my monthly wrap-ups the last few months, like keeping track of the books that I haul and bring into my home versus the books that I read from my physical TBR, and try to zero those out. And if they don't zero out, then I have like a self-inflicted rule to unhaul books in order to make up the difference, just so that I'm not like drowning myself in new books and purchasing books like willy-nilly, just to like manage that for myself. So that being said, I will definitely have to unhaul some books in April, in my April wrap-up, so stay tuned for that, because I have gone a little overboard, but I also have absolutely zero regrets. There are plenty of books on my shelf that are collecting dust that I can unhaul and happily make room for these new babies that I will be showing you. So I think I'm gonna start with the graphic novels. They're so heavy. This is the stack of graphic novels that I've acquired in the last 4 months. So a few of these I have already read, and otherwise I'm very excited to get to them and hopefully do like a graphic novel reading vlog one of these days. I think that would be really fun. So the first one that I have to talk about is March Book 2. This is the second in the trilogy of like graphic nonfiction that John Lewis put together with a couple like graphic novel artists. And so he actually wrote this. This is the story of John Lewis and his life's history and activism for the civil rights movement and his life in politics. The first volume talked a lot about like him growing up, his childhood, and going to university and being involved in the group of students that organized the sit-in protests in Nashville that then spread across the country. And I absolutely loved the first volume of this, even though I think it was like half the length of this, which makes me very excited to read the second volume. I know that as soon as I finish the second volume, I will want the third immediately. The first volume of this is one of the favorite graphic nonfictions I've ever read. Strongly recommend. Can't wait for this. The next two that I have are also graphic nonfiction. Well, maybe one and a half of them, I should say. The first one is Tetris by Box Brown. I have read this. This is now one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. I mean, it's the nonfiction story of the history of the game Tetris. I didn't realize that Tetris had a big hand in the boom of the video game industry back in the 80s. There are a lot of like countries fighting over the rights to the PC game, to the handheld game rights, etc. Such a convoluted, interesting story, and brings up so much interesting commentary about like video games, about games in general, about like how it can bring people together and separate people. All of the strange like legal drama that went on based on this game about falling blocks that you have to match into rows. You wouldn't expect it to be be as interesting as it is, but I found it so fascinating. So I strongly recommend this if you want to get into graphic nonfiction. Literally the story of Tetris. I don't know what else to say about it, but beyond that. Okay, this one is like half graphic nonfiction. It's really more like her fictionalized idea of what her family's history might have been. So the author, artist, and main character Kiku Hughes is like one and the same. So she has written herself into this narrative to go back in time at the time when her grandmother and great-grandparents were forcibly relocated to Japanese internment camps in America. The character of Kiku Hughes finds herself swept back in time and kind of lives parallel alongside her grandmother and great-grandparents in these internment camps, and it has like a lot of deep messages about generational trauma and history and racism and all of those things that were put upon Japanese American people in the 40s and have continued out through the decades. And so Kiku gets to come to her own conclusions and unpack these things. Like, we get to unpack them with her as she processes it through this story and like through her writing this story. It has very cool like speculative elements, like going back in time and all those things, but it's also like very grounded in reality. There are references to the 2016 election, obviously references to a lot of like key historical events and moments in American history. So amazing, amazing read for me as well. The rest of these I haven't read because all of these, what is this, 5? These 5 I bought during my spree the other day. So I have a whole chunk of new graphic novels for me to get through. Okay, so this one has absolute garbage ratings on Goodreads, but I think it will still be fun to read at least just once for the meme. But this is Paul is Dead, When the Beatles Lost McCartney, and this is a like historical fiction slash speculative fiction, I think, because it's based on this conspiracy theory from the 60s that like claimed that Paul McCartney had died in a car crash, and the Beatles had like a look-alike come in to keep playing so that they could like keep taking people's money and making music without anyone having to know that Paul McCartney actually died. I love that it's just about a conspiracy theory. That seems so fun to write like a fake historical fiction on a conspiracy theory. Like that just seems so tongue-in-cheek, and I kind of love that already. The next one I have is maybe the one I'm most excited for from these graphic novels. I don't know, that's hard to say, but I will be picking this up ASAP as possible because I'm this excited. This is On a Sunbeam by Tilly Walden. It's a brick. Like, this is like a 500-page graphic novel. Let's see. Yeah, over 500 pages on this chunker. Everything that I have looked up as far as a premise is so vague. There's like 3 sentences on the inside flap. Here's 100% of this flap. A restoration crew travels to the deepest reaches of space, rebuilding beautiful broken structures to piece the past together. Sentence 1. 2 girls meet in boarding school and fall deeply in love, only to learn the pain of loss. Sentence 2. With 2 interwoven timelines and stunning art, award-winning graphic novelist Tilly Walden creates an inventive world, breathtaking romance, and an epic quest for love. That's all I'm supposed to know. So I'm not gonna do any more digging. I'm just gonna jump into it very soon. So the next 2 are volumes 2 and 3 of Pretty Deadly. It looks like this. The first volume I rated 5 stars like 6 years ago or something. So I will have to reread the first volume before I get to these 100%, but I can't wait because Pretty Deadly, like the first one, it's like magical realism in a gritty like Western setting, and you follow the daughter of Death. So the first volume is like her origin story, the daughter of Death, and kind of her background and who she is, what she does. And I remember, even though I read it like years ago, I remember that it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger where you want to know, Okay, but like now what? Like what's the real story? Because you get her origin story and all about her in the first one. Well, now I have the real story, or at least volumes 2 and 3. I don't know how long the series is. Anyways, so I'm excited to reread volume 1 and then probably marathon these two because I remember it being so moving and beautiful and gritty and wonderful and all my favorite things. So that's pretty deadly. The last graphic novel that I have is called Twisted Romance, which is an anthology, 12 Tales of Love from Comics' Hottest Talents. And this is an anthology from a bunch of different artists and comic writers about romance. And I will tell you what the back says because this is what got me. Twisted Romance is a romantic anthology from well off the boring beaten path. Demons prowl the 70s New York disco scene. Humble creative assistants fall for movie stars. Space captains spar with frustratingly handsome pirates. Princesses run away with dragons. All this and much, much more can be found within these pages. So it says that it is written by and for people from all walks of life, which seems to be true because like in the back it has a brief bio of all of the writers, artists, contributors, and I am so happy to see like all of the like diversity of backgrounds, pronouns. It's so exciting for me to see like all the different representation like in every way that you can imagine. So I'm excited to read this anthology. It has also some mixed reviews on Goodreads, but I feel like I'm not scared of that. Anthologies like this, especially some that like claim that they are off the beaten boring path are probably going to have some mixed reviews. So this is fun. I'm not usually one to reach for romance, but this, in this context, in this kind of form with a graphic novel anthology, just sounded up my alley. So I'm excited to get to this one soon. I hope that there are some juicy ones in here, and you know I love a good anthology. Okay, those were all the graphic novels, and I've already been recording forever, so I feel like I need to speed my shit up. And I think I'm gonna save the fiction for the end, which is, I mean, that's most of what I have. So the next category is nonfiction and poetry. Oh, my grip strength cannot handle this. Okay, nonfiction and poetry. I have 6 here, and I will try and be brief because I feel like nonfiction is a little more straightforward. And some of these you've already seen before. So I only have one poetry that I acquired, which is The Girl and the Goddess, Stories and Poems of Divine Wisdom by Nikita Gill. And the interesting thing about this book of poems that attracted me to it, that I think I will like, is that it's follows one thread of a story with this character who may or may not be like the author's, the poet's version of herself. I'm not entirely sure, but this says that we follow Pero, a girl with a strong will, a full heart, and much to learn, born into a family reeling from the ruptures of partition in India. We follow her as she crosses the precarious lines between childhood, teenage discovery, and realizing her adult self. In the process, Pero must confront fear, desire, and the darkest parts of herself in the search for meaning and ultimately empowerment. So I'm excited that this is like a whole book of poems, but has that common theme, like storyline under it. I don't think I've ever read like storytelling poetry like that has the same theme. I'm also pretty brand new to the world of poetry, but I was so intrigued. I love that it's telling a story yet is a book of poems. So I hope that I'm not let down by my own hyping of this for myself. So I will be picking this up soon. Okay, and then the other 5 are just nonfiction. First, you have seen this before. This is Word Slut by Amanda Montell, a feminist guide to taking back the English language. And most of you guys know at this point I studied linguistics. It is like my passion, my love. I love language, and this is just like the intersection of 2 of my life's greatest passions. And so I know that I will probably enjoy this when I get to this. Very excited. The next one is Disfigured by Amanda Leddick. This says Disfigured on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space. The whole point of this book is like looking at the fairy tales that maybe like able-bodied people like me have just never questioned. And so I know that Amanda Leddick is a disability rights advocate, and I'm excited to see this like through her own lens, in her own words. and we will go from there. The next one that I have is Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot. Hood feminism like attacks the idea that it's not just like hashtag girl boss mentality in order to, in good faith, like call yourself a feminist, that there are many things that are like feminist issues that a lot of feminists, particularly white women, let's be real, leave out of the movement, like safe neighborhoods, access to education, food security, all of these things that I know like this book unpacks and addresses through this lens from Mickey Kendall. And I'm very excited because those are things that I need to be more educated on in general. And I'm looking forward to talking about this in book club, to underlining and giving this book some really good appreciative love from me. And we will talk as soon as I read it because I'm sure I will have many thoughts. Can't wait. The next one, I can't believe I found this for such a bargain, is We Are Displaced by Malala Yousafzai. And Malala is like my everything, my idol, my queen. Like if I could have dinner with anyone, like dead or living, it would be Malala. Like I have so much love and awe and respect for her. I read her memoir, so I was so excited to pick up her new book, We Are Displaced. This is Malala's story and also has a bunch of other stories from other like refugee girls and women. We Are Displaced introduces readers to some of the incredible girls Malala has met on her many journeys and lets each one tell her own story. Like I'm gonna cry, but I'm ready. I'm ready. I love Malala. I love the work that she does, the activism that she does. I can't wait. That's it. That's really all I'm here to say. Okay, the last one is really going to set in stone that I am a Enneagram Type 7. And this is That Sounds Fun by Annie F. Downs. And I really just bought this because the cover, the title just really spoke to me. The joys of being an amateur, the power of falling in love, and why you need a hobby. Have you ever seen something that just screams 7 as much as this does? I don't think so. Then I come to find out that it's actually a podcast, which I have not listened to, but I will be listening to. I'm not sure. I think that there will be quite a lot that I do get from this book, but it also like literally is categorized as Christian living. So I don't know. I will be taking it with a grain of salt. I'm sure there's lots that I will be able to learn from it, but I don't know how much like religious commentary to expect. Not that that's a turnoff per se, it's just not something I usually subscribe to. So we'll see when we get there. Okay, those are all of the nonfiction ones. So now the whole rest of my books here are fiction. So I have a few short story collections to show you first, and then we will finally get to the chunk of this haul, which is just like the normal ass fiction novels. Okay, so first, somehow I am on a short story kick right now. I'm having so much fun with short story collections right now, so I have quite a few to share with you. The first two were sent to me by Page One Books, which is the book subscription that I signed up for after canceling Book of the Month, and I could not be any happier with them. Basically, when you sign up for Page One, you like give them your Goodreads link, you tell them your favorite authors, your favorite books, your favorite tropes, the things that you like to read, and also like anything that you'd like to read more of or just kind of like dip your toe into. You can tell them things that you don't want to read, authors that you don't like, books you didn't like, all of that. And then they take all that information and they just send you a book that they think you would like. It's literally Stitch Fix, but for books. And I'm living. I'm having so much fun. I haven't even read either of the books they've sent me yet, and I'm so excited. It's like Christmas morning. I've gotten 2 boxes from them so far, and it's so fun. I will shut up about Page One, but I'm having a blast, okay? Like, I do not miss Book of the Month at all, sorry. And so I specifically told Page One that I want to read more short story collections. So far, the first 2 that they've sent me have both been short story collections. Couldn't be happier. The first one is Burning Girls and Other Stories by Veronica Shanos. And it just seems like a really, like a blending of 2 genres, like speculative or fantasy with like historical and contemporary writing. Shanos invests the immigrant narrative with a fearsome fairy tale quality that tells a story about America we may not want but need to hear. I don't know what else to say. So this was quite the read on like my, no pun intended, on like my taste. For them to just send this to me as my first book, I'm very excited. So the other one that they sent me from my April box, I just got this one, is Get in Trouble by Kelly Link. It has this really cool cover. It's like upside down, you know, like this is the book right side up, but the cover is like upside down. I think that's so cool. Actually, it has a pretty similar style like to Burning Girls. I just feel like they look very similar. The most that I can get from this on Goodreads, there's this short sentence that says hurricanes, astronauts, evil twins, bootleggers, Ouija boards, iguanas, the Wizard of Oz, superheroes, the pyramids, ... I don't know what that means, except that I think it means I'm gonna have a good time. Okay, so the next short story collection I have is A Universe of Wishes, which is an anthology by a whole diverse cast of award-winning authors. It's edited by Danielle Clayton, who apparently is the COO of We Need Diverse Books. And this is actually the 4th book in the like collaboration with We Need Diverse Books. So I don't know like what the other anthologies or books are about. I think it's similar. I think they're also short story anthologies. I could be wrong. But if I love this, which I might, then I will for sure be like going back and reading the others. I just saw Brandon on Instagram review and rate this very highly, and I screenshotted, like he posted the table of contents with all of the ones that were like his favorite stories. So I screenshotted that. So when I read this, we can compare notes and talk about it. So I think the theme of this has to do with like wishes for a better future, a better world. 15 award-winning, celebrated, diverse authors deliver stories about a princess without need of a prince, a monster long misunderstood, memories that vanish with a single spell, and voices that refuse to stay silent in the face of injustice. I love anthologies that like have all these different contributors, and I'm learning that there's a big difference in short story collections that are all the same author versus like, I guess, short story anthologies that are written by like different contributors. So I'm really excited. Brandon really liked this. I feel like Brandon and I generally have pretty similar taste, so I'm excited for this too. Okay, I have 2 more short story collections, and then we can get on to the fiction, the novels. The next one that I have is Dark Matter, which is edited by Cherie R. Thomas and includes a whole bunch of like different acclaimed sci-fi and speculative authors. I'll read you like the paragraph on the back. An important new anthology, the first of its kind, Dark Matter explores a century of fantastic fiction by preeminent and emerging luminaries of the African diaspora. A richly vibrant collection of stories and essays, it displays the brilliance of writers ranging from early pioneers such as Webb Du Bois to famed science fiction authors including Samuel R. Delany and Octavia E. Butler, to such luminaries of the literary tradition as playwright critic Amiri Baraka and satirist Ishmael Reed, as well as a spectrum of acclaimed new writers. Duh. Hello? Like, this sounded great when I bought it, and it still sounds great. It's like long and big, and I'm excited. I know it's gonna be good. I think this will probably end up being, if I do like a short story collection reading vlog, this will probably be in there because hello? I think the coolest thing about this is that it literally is like a century of writing, like a century of speculative fiction from the African diaspora. So cool. That's so cool. Okay, the last story collection I have is Zadie Smith's Grand Union short story collection. And I don't know that this has like a theme through them. I think some of these are either some popular works that she originally published like in the New Yorker, or some that are not published that she just has like thrown together in this story collection. Is it weird that I'm just like reading you premises? This is the thing about hauls, okay? It's like I don't know anything about them really because I haven't read them yet. So I feel like sometimes it's a little awkward, but I'll just tell you what the back says. Moving exhilaratingly across genres and perspectives, from the historic to the vividly current to the slyly dystopian, Grand Union is a sharply alert and prescient collection about time and place, identity, and rebirth. So I'm really looking forward to this. Zadie Smith is an author that I've wanted to read for a long time and have just been silly and intimidated by some of her like longer fiction works. So this is my toe dipping into the wonderful world of Zadie Smith. So finally, we can get to the books, the novels, the fiction works. I have separated these into sci-fi fantasy and not sci-fi fantasy, and the not sci-fi fantasy pile is only 5. So I am who I am. So the first one in this non-sci-fi fantasy pile is The Japanese Lover by Isabel Allende. I am currently reading this. You can see my bookmark here. This is a historical fiction that I don't really know how to describe. I'm only like a couple chapters into it. The first couple chapters that I've read, we follow Arena, who's like a young girl in like present time, our time, who gets a job working at like an elderly care facility, and she meets some very interesting characters. And so I think we go into like the histories of like some of those older folks at the home. So I'm hoping there's like a dual timeline, or either we like learn the history like through the woman telling Arena her story. I'm not really sure. So far I'm enjoying it, and I think that the way that the information is unfolding and the humor that this already kind of has, I'm already having a great time. So that's The Japanese Lover. The next one, I guess I could have put this in the sci-fi pile, but this is The One by John Mars. I just read this. You can get my whole thoughts about this in my thriller reading vlog, and this is kind of many genres in one book. There's definitely like a little element of sci-fi to this, but a very, very small amount. There are thrillery aspects to this. There's a certain sci-fi aspect to this. There are many different POVs in here. There's some romance in here. It was a very interesting read. Like I very much so enjoyed this. Follows this app dating service that was created where you submit like a swab of your DNA to this company, and the company will send you back an email that says, we've looked at your DNA and we have decided, like, or our science has told us that your soulmate is this person. Here's their contact information. And so that's the world that we live in this book, where you can just submit your DNA to the service and find out that your soulmate is the person that you're already married to, or in fact it's someone across the world who's also already married or has other circumstances like going on that may prevent you from coming together, or you both say, screw it, I want to be with my soulmate. So you could see how there would be some tension in this world where such an app, such technology exists. I found it very interesting. So that's The One. And I'm excited to read more from John Mars. So probably the next time I do a haul, you will see more John Mars on there. Next I have Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Anxious People, I've heard some like vague reviews about. I've also heard that it is like one of those that's gonna make you cry. This says that looking at real estate isn't usually life or death situation, but an apartment open house becomes just that when a failed bank robber bursts in and takes a group of strangers hostage. And then it goes on to talk about like who those strangers, those captives are. I think that this is more told in flashbacks or in like vignettes of those hostages' life, and what brought them all to this same open house, what they're all doing there. I don't know why that premise could lead to making people sob at the end of this book, but I'm eager to find out. I could use a good cry. You know, sometimes you're just in the mood to be emotionally ruined. And now I have this when the mood strikes. And the last two that I have are the last 2 books that I received from Book of the Month before I canceled my Book of the Month subscription. The first one is Outlawed by Anna North. I want to read more Westerns, and I feel like this may be a fun place to start reading more Westerns, because this says that it takes like a turn on the myth of the Old West, or some of the kind of tired tropes of the Old West, reignites the glimmering promise of the frontier with an entirely new set of feminist stakes. But yeah, one of these days I will get around to this cool like lady Western. The last one that I have from my February Book of the Month pick, my last ever Book of the Month pick, is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I've also heard the audiobook for this is is good. So I may like read this with the audiobook. This follows a PhD student who like prides herself on being very organized and put together. The typical Virgo, I think this describes her as. I'm also a typical Virgo. She is not the kind of person who goes to Vegas and gets drunkenly married to a woman she doesn't know until she does exactly that. I think this will be a really great one also. Okay, we are down to it. So the last ones is like all of my sci-fi, fantasy, and speculative fiction that I have hauled in the month of 2021. The month of 2021, the year of 2021. So first I have Babel 17 by Samuel R. Delany. This is like a sci-fi classic that I haven't read. This won a Hugo in the 60s, or was a finalist for a Hugo Award in the 60s. I don't remember, I should look that up. I bought this because this is our group book for Linguathon this month. Still haven't read it, but I'm going to by the end of the month. The main character is a linguist and using her skills to communicate with like the alien technology, the alien languages in order to like save their space expedition is like the center of the story. So that's it. That's all I know. I haven't read it. I've heard mixed reviews from the people in the Discord that have read it. So that's Babel 17. I hope that I like it, but if I don't, like, that's okay. I'm just excited to read this like classic in a genre that I read so much of. Okay, next is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg, and I read this during my 48-hour book upathon vlog. I buddy read this with my friend Nicole. I think she liked it a little more than I did. This is a young adult sci-fi mixed media where in this theme park, which is basically Disneyland, there are these like princesses who appear very humanoid, but they are like perfect in their appearance, in their behavior, in the way that they interact with guests, everything. And it's because they are like intelligently engineered AI robots, but they look human. It's like a similar idea to Westworld, if you've watched Westworld on HBO. So this story follows one of the main princesses who is accused of murder, of murdering someone in the park. Without spoiling anything, I really liked the premise a lot more than the execution. So I won't get into like my thoughts on it. Like that's the premise, is sci-fi mixed media, magical theme park, AI humanoid princess robots accused of murder. Do with that what you will. I did not love it, but that's beside the point. Okay, and then I have Thunderhead and the Toll by Neil Shusterman. I bought these to make sure that I would have them for the read-along that is coming to an end this month, Scythe-along, with Mel and Samantha. In April, we are reading and discussing The Toll, which is the third and final in the series. The first one is Scythe, of course. So I can't really tell you much about these, but I can tell you about Scythe if you don't know. Hundreds of years in the future where humans have like solved all the problems, like disease isn't a thing, hunger isn't a thing, suffering isn't a thing, dying isn't a thing. So people don't die. It's just simply not possible unless you are killed by one of these scythes. Scythes are like the peak, like some of the most respected figures of authority in this world. They're like celebrated, deeply respected, almost like religiously admired and upheld. And really what they are like mainstream sanctioned, celebrated serial killers, because they're the only ones that can inflict death on anyone in this world. So what does that mean like to the human population? My favorite thing about this series so far, I have read Scythe and Thunderhead, I have not read The Toll yet. My favorite thing by far are like the cultural discussions that it brings up and like the philosophy that's woven in there. I love it. I'm having a great time. This is a very popular like young adult sci-fi series, dystopian series, whatever, it's the same. So I'm excited to see how it ends with The Toll. Okay, next. We're almost done. I have 4 more. So first I have No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. So I think this will be a really quick read, but the premise kind of reminded me of some of the discussions that are brought up in An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green, which I loved. I'm pretty sure this is a sci-fi that has to do with also internet culture. A woman known for her viral social media posts travels the world speaking to her adoring fans. She is overwhelmed by navigating the new language and etiquette of what she terms the portal, where she grapples with an unshakable conviction that a vast chorus of voices is now dictating her thoughts. Are we in hell? The people of the portal ask themselves. Are we all just going to keep doing this until we die? But it reminds me of some of the things that happen in An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, and also the second book in the duology, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. And similar to Scythe, like, my favorite thing about that series, that duology, is the discussions that it brings up about like culture, internet culture, human behavior, psychology, philosophy, and like what that would mean through a speculative lens, through a sci-fi lens of like, how would all of those things run up against a first contact situation, or in this case, like a very interesting, atmospheric, like genre bendy speculative lens. Next is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow? I'm not sure. And I think that I am going to love this. Are you tired of hearing me say that in this video yet? I may have seen on a list somewhere that this has the multiverse trope, which is by far my favorite sci-fi trope, but I don't know if that's like more of a loose interpretation, knowing that like the 10,000 doors aspect, I think, has more to do with going into stories, which is also another favorite thing of mine that happens in books, where like books or books about storytelling, I just think that's so fun and exciting to read about. When she finds a strange book, one that tells a tale of secret doors of love, adventure, and danger, for the first time, January realizes she can escape her story and sneak into someone else's. That sounds just so cryptic and exciting, which is maybe not quite multiverse, but similar to that trope in a way that kind of scratches that itch for me. This also has deckled edges. I know some people don't like deckled edges, but I find them so satisfying. But regardless, that just sounds like a very fun, kind of quiet read that's gonna make me think a lot, which clearly from this haul, if you're picking up on a theme, I like to be pushed to think about things and to chew on things in my own brain. So I hope that does the job. Next is The Power by Naomi Alderman. I was supposed to buddy read this with Rachel last month, and then we pushed it to April to buddy read it, and I still haven't read it. Sorry, Rachel. I'm gonna get to it. I know that Rachel really loved it. Rachel and I have really similar tastes sometimes and really opposite tastes sometimes, so I don't know how this is gonna go. But it does seem like something that I would enjoy in a weird way. This is a speculative book wherein girls and women have the power with like a flick of their fingers to inflict horrible, excruciating pain onto men and boys. So men are afraid to like walk home alone at night because what if there's a woman there who could hurt them? I can't imagine what that would be like, what that kind of fear would be like. I know the points that this book, you know, is supposed to make or is trying to make, and I've also seen very polarizing reviews of this book, so I will be very interested to see where I land on that spectrum, whether I really love it or I'm disappointed by it. This did win the Women's Prize for Fiction, which is on either my Reading Women Challenge or my Book Riot Challenge to read a past winner of that award. So regardless, this is doing something for me, but I also just love the cover of this. I love kind of the darkness that this alludes to, and I think it's going to be a very interesting read. I will be excited to get Rachel's thoughts on it once I finally pick it up, and yeah, that's The Power. The last one that I have to show you is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I've already read this. I loved it. This is probably my favorite book of the year so far, if not easily in the top 3. Really hard to explain because it's the first in like an epic fantasy series that is now coming out. I said in a recent video, like, don't sleep on Black Sun, like especially once all the books are out. I know this is going to be huge. because it is simply that good. Like, it is that good. This is book 1 in the Between Earth and Sky trilogy, inspired by the civilizations of the pre-Columbian Americas and woven into a tale of celestial prophecies, political intrigue, and forbidden magic. I can't tell you any more besides that. I don't want to tell you any more beyond that. This also says a god will return when the earth and sky converge under the black sun. There are 4 POVs, 3 or 4. I think 4 POVs in this book, and every single one of them I'm so attached to, and I cannot wait. I need the next book right now. So good. The magic, amazing. The politics, don't even get me started. This is great. Now I'm just reviewing this book. Oh my god. So I'm really happy to own the physical copy, but I also strongly recommend the audiobook because each of the 4 POVs is read by a different voice actor. You don't have to worry about like mispronouncing any of the names because obviously the actors do that for you. It was a very good experience, but I also am just stoked to own this absolute gorgeous piece of fiction. Okay, that's the end. Wow, this took me way too long to film this. Can't wait to edit this. That's gonna be fun. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of these or if you are like excited to read any of these. Let's see, what emoji should we do today? I'm in a silly mood, so I'm kind of feeling, how about cheese? For no reason. I just like cheese. If you watch this whole video, leave me a cheese emoji just for the smiles, for the good times, to tell me that you watched and enjoyed. I would really appreciate that. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I also have my Instagram, TikTok, Goodreads, Twitter, all in the description for you to check out. I would love to hang out with you outside of just the YouTubes once or twice a week. I hope you are doing well, and I will see you next time. Okay, love you, bye!